This is Stronger Than My Father with Marcus Minis.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining in for another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. I am your host, Marcus Minis. Why this podcast exists, you may ask. I believe that fatherhood matters and that it's time to bring more of an awareness to fatherhood and to begin breaking the cycle of fatherlessness. This show is powered by your donation, subscriptions, and a 5-star rating. Please support us by going to strongerthanmyfather.org for more information on other podcasts and help us continue to fight for fatherhood. Let's get into it. My guest is a friend I've been knowing for, I don't know how many years. I don't even want to say the years, but it's been a friend to me. We've talked about fatherhood, I don't know for how many years, and I wanted him to be a guest on my fatherhood series. This is episode number 2 that I'm really excited about. And I want to dive into the story because the story is so powerful that I believe you really enjoy listening to someone who's experienced not having a father, but has used that strength to help him become a better man. So I welcome Mr. Gary Evans. So welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here. How you doing?
Doing great, man. So let's dive into fatherhood. I'm gonna start out with the $1 million question. When we was talking about fatherhood years ago, before you tell people your story, you mentioned that one day your father was going to pick you up. You had your clothes and everything on that porch.
No, it was
okay.
It was my birthday.
Your birthday, okay.
It was my birthday, and I hadn't seen my dad since I want to say I was 6 or 7.
Okay.
And it was on my birthday.
Okay.
I hadn't seen my dad since him and my mother got divorced.
Okay.
They had got divorced when I was 3.
Okay.
And I hadn't seen him or heard anything from him.
Okay.
He pulls up in front of the house on my birthday, told me he had to go get something, a piece for the car. I believe he said it's a starter. Mm-hmm. And he said, stay right here on the porch and I will be right back to get you. And that's what I did.
And I said, when you said, I'm still that child waiting for my dad to pick me back up, why did you say that?
Well, for the simple reason is he never did show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I never did leave off that porch. I stayed on that porch. It was right after school. Mm-hmm. Me and my brother was out in the yard. Mom came home. No, Mom was asleep because she was working 3rd shift. Mm-hmm. My grandfather came home, seen me out sitting on the porch. My brother, he don't went out playing with our friends like we normally do. But there I was sitting on the porch waiting on him to show up. Mm-hmm. He never did. It got dark. My parents, my mother, and because we were staying with my grandparents, they brought my food out to me on the porch because I wouldn't leave off the porch.
So you thought Dad was coming.
I'm waiting on him to show up. He never did. Mm-hmm. My mother had already, she was with my baby brother's daddy at that particular time. Mm-hmm. He was about, I want to say he was a baby. Mm-hmm. And he was taking my mom to work. Mm-hmm. It was dark. So he took me and my brother to work, took us with him. Mm-hmm. He brought me some ice cream, calmed me down. I went home, went to sleep. I didn't see my father again until probably about 3-4 more years later.
After he said he was going to pick you up?
After he said he was going to pick me up. But I got a phone call from him every year asking me what was my shoe size, what was my clothes size. He was going to send us stuff in the mail. And I would come home, ask Mama, did we get anything in the mail? Never got nothing in the mail. So he kept lying.
Empty promises?
Empty promises,
yeah.
And let me back up. I did see him. I saw him. He was working for a milk truck, seal test truck. He stopped me. I heard somebody call my name, and that was him. He gave me a dime. And he was gone.
Let me do this because I had to start out that way. And usually most podcasts, I want people to learn more about who you are, but I was just so itching to know that story. So tell my audience a little bit about you, where you from, And then we're going to keep curving into fatherhood.
Well, I was born in Chattanooga.
I thought you were going to say Cleveland for some reason. I thought you were going to say Cleveland.
I lived in Ohio, but I was born in Chattanooga.
Okay.
I left Chattanooga and moved up to Ohio for about 8 years. Came back Tennessee, Chattanooga, and the company that I worked for transferred me here to Nashville.
Okay.
And that was in 2000.
Yeah.
And I was struggling with alcohol. And I knew I had to change, and I just couldn't get it. The alcohol was just really taking over me. And then my wife, me and her had just got back together because alcohol had separated us. We had got back together back in 98. So we moved to Nashville. She told me, because we grew up together as kids, and they grew up in the church, Holiness Church. She said she was going back to church. I said, you go head on. And I stayed home. And next thing she told me that the pastor wanted to meet me. I said, okay, I'll go head on. And I went, and I was looking for this older pastor.
Yeah, bishop. Yeah.
I was looking for this older man to come down. And when I walked off in the church, the first thing I saw was all the men that was in church. The brotherhood that was in the church. And I'm looking at these brothers, and I'm like, I'm not used to seeing this many men in a church. And not only did I see men in the church, but I seen them actually singing, clapping, participating. I'm seeing men over there with tears coming out their eyes. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm seeing the laughter, the joy, and all of a sudden I'm saying, I want some of that. But what do? I leave church and I go back to drinking, until where the, I guess I know it now, God took the taste of alcohol out of my mouth to where it just, how much I drink, I just couldn't taste it. I couldn't get the buzz. I couldn't get that high that I was looking for, not till I accepted Christ as my Savior.
Well, let me ask you this. Growing up, because your story is powerful, growing up without that father piece, what do when people say they go to drinking, Toya would say, hey, I would say, where's the daddy? But if they see a father drink, do the child drink and stuff like that? And I don't want to get too far off where I'm trying to go, is that not growing up without that strong father piece in the house, did other influences take over because you didn't have a father that you feel like didn't protect you enough from all the bad things that's out there growing up?
Yeah, it did. After that day that he never did show up.
Yeah.
I was first grade, second grade.
Yeah.
Doing real good in school. But by the time I got to that third grade, I started getting a little bit rebellious because that's when I got into it with my third grade teacher.
You feel like that's because daddy wasn't there?
I don't know. I'm quite sure that had I'm quite sure it had a lot to do with it, because I can tell you, I think I got angry when I went to they were starting a Cub Scouts at my elementary school. And when I went to Cub Scout, I looked around and I seen all the kids that was with their dads. And not realizing at that particular time, there was a couple of them that was not their dad, but I think it could have been an uncle or a bigger brother or someone like that. But I know I was there by myself. Yeah. And I got angry. Did not knowing that was why I was angry, but I know I had got into it with my third grade teacher. And then from that point on, my grades and everything from my third grade on up, my grades just went downhill. My mom, by the time I got up a couple more grades later, my mom had moved out. She moved out of my grandparents' house and got an apartment just for me and my two younger brothers. But she provided for us. She worked at 2 jobs. So what did that leave us? That left us at home with no supervision. Yep. And so I started getting in trouble at school, by the time I got up until the 7th grade, I was 12 years old. And I started, the dude said, you want to drink some beer? I've seen my grandfather drink beer and seen my uncles and them drink beer. I said, okay. So we drunk some beer and all that. Before you know it, I got drunk. I went home. On my way home, I walked right past the bathroom. My mom was in the bed asleep because she got to get and work third shift. All of a sudden, my stomach started boiling, and I just, everything came up.
Yeah.
She thought I was sick. And she jumped up, and she smelled beer. She knew what the issue was. Well, from what I was told, I just laid in bed, and she just tore my butt up. She got somebody got some lambs and whooped my butt. And so before you know it, she made me go to school the next day. Whips and all, according to today's laws, that would have been child abuse. And she'd have went to jail, but that's the way it was back then. She did everything she could, but
let me ask you this: when I look at kids getting in trouble around their teenage years, do you feel if your father was around to protect you, you think a lot of things that you would probably wouldn't have got into, if you feel like you had that father piece to protect you, to be around you, encourage you, and you could see every day, do you feel like that would have curved some of the things?
I know it would have.
Back in your time.
Back in my time, it would have, because there was some friends that I used to play with that they had their fathers. And you had a couple of them, their dads would take me fishing with them when they all went fishing, or would take me with them, and you had another gentleman across the street, he's no longer with us, but Big Walk would always sit up there, and he was a good father figure. They would, encourage you to do things. But, you got so much anger in you, because at that time, my dad still was making those phone calls. And he wouldn't show up. And he wouldn't send nothing like he said it would be. He kept a lying. And I never forget the time. By the time I got about, I want to say I was probably about 12 or 13, because at that particular time I had got away from alcohol, and I got turned on to marijuana. And before you know it, my grandfather had called and said, come down to the house, to his house. He only stayed because he don't moved a couple of blocks from us. I go to my grandfather's house. Guess who was in there? My dad.
Wow.
And it was just like I just froze. I hadn't seen him, and I just sat there, and my granddad said, "You know who that is?" I said, "That's my dad." And we sit and chit chat for a few minutes, and when he left, he gave me and my brother, which is his son, that's 2 years younger than me, we gave both of us $1. I didn't realize it at that particular time, but he didn't even give my baby brother $1. I guess he said, that's not mine. But my granddaddy had to give him $1 because he busted out crying. And I just said, I went on for years saying, the only thing my dad ever did for me was to give me, he gave $1 and a dime.
That's a good rhyme. Let me ask you this. I've done other podcasts with other guys. One of my first ones was Empty Promises. He would promise this, promise that, and wouldn't show up. What does the anger of a young man growing out of father, what for my audience that's listening to want to know, a young man, especially a young African-American young boy growing up without his father, what does that anger make you do for a young man? What does the anger make you do? And that's me from understanding the psychology part. What does that anger make you do? What did it make you do? And then how did it drive you to where you kind of at today? Just the anger part of that. I don't really understand that a lot.
Well, the anger part of that right there got to me by the time I was 14 years of age.
Okay.
That's when I mentally buried my dad. When I was 14 years of age, from that point on, anybody asked me about my dad, he was dead.
Wow, that's deep.
He was dead.
That's really deep. Wow.
I buried him. I didn't see him again until I was working. I got my second job my first job as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody had came up to me and said, "Hey man, your dad is out there," and I'm thinking that he playing a dozen.
Yeah, yeah. Trying to talk about you.
So
yeah,
I'm getting ready to come back at him, and he said,
Yeah.
"No man, it's a man out there saying he's your dad."
yeah.
So I go out there, and there he is with all the anger.
What age were you then? Because you
At
said
that
14.
Huh?
So you buried him at 14. So what age were you when you saw him at that
When
time?
I saw him again, I had already talked to him because I had talked to him a year before then, when he called me and said, "Your mama said you graduated from high school. What do you need?" I said, "Man, I don't need nothing from you. You dead to me."
Wow.
And then I said, "If you really want to do something for me, you take care of my little brother, your son, when he graduate next year."
Mm-hmm.
He didn't. He didn't take care. He promised my brother he'll meet him downtown, and he never did. But I'm going a little further.
Yeah.
But that was after I had met him.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, he told my brother to meet him downtown. He didn't come. And so that just made more anger toward me.
Towards him.
Because even when I saw him,
Yeah.
all the anger still that I had, it was like, for some reason, just went away. I was just glad to see my dad.
So let me ask you this then. One thing I want to ask, and I asked other guests in the past, as you got older, did you ever sit down with your dad to ask him, number one, why weren't you there? And did your dad ever apologize for not being there for you?
No, my dad never did. My dad was I want to say, let me go ahead and call it what it is. My dad was a con artist. He was a con artist, and he was, unfortunately, he did his cunning through the church.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
The church. Uh-oh.
My father was blessed to be able to sing the gospel very well. From what I was told, when he went up north, there was a singing group that the lead singer would gracefully get out the way and give him the mic. When he came down south, they did the same thing. I had one man told me, he said, if your daddy would have paid attention to those words that he was actually singing, you know, ain't no telling whether God would have taken him with the talent that he had. Even my father-in-law couldn't stand him. I ain't gonna never forget when my father said, I couldn't stand that pretty blankety blank. Because he always had a suit.
Yeah.
He had a car. And the lady, and he drove the church ladies crazy.
Yeah.
And instead of him, being faithful, he allowed that freedom and that cunning. You'd be surprised how many people I ran across that said, that said, "Where's your low down, dirty daddy at?"
Wow. I think that I want to get into your stories. We could stick with this for a while, but I want to get to your story of raising kids. You are a father. You are a grandfather. What skill set helped you in fatherhood?
I struggled. I struggled real bad because I ended up with having two young ladies pregnant at the same time. And I ended up marrying one of them, and that marriage didn't work out. It was a struggle with me, raising my kids. We did not get closer until they got older. It was the struggle, and I'm seeing some of the, spirits are real. I didn't realize that until now, as I got older. But some of the same things that my dad did to me, I turned around and did to my kids.
Repeated the cycle.
A repeated cycle, to where having to pay child support. Having not a communication, even though angry with the woman,
Yeah.
or she angry with me, and
Yeah.
who suffered? The kids suffered.
The kids suffered, yeah.
The kids suffered a lot because, we could not get together and understand, it's not about us. We have to go our separate ways, but we still should focus more on the kid.
Protecting the child. Some people, let me ask you this, so I know I'm not going crazy. When I say the cycle ends with me, when you're trying to break a cycle, do you really believe that fatherhood is a cycle, that if a young man doesn't get the tools to be a great dad, he can repeat the same thing that he's seen his absent father do? Not being there for the kid, and I'm not bashing you in any kind of way. Not being there for the kid, seeing kids being destroyed because either two things: he didn't get the tools from his father how to be a dad. He didn't get tools, or they just don't want to be a father. They just can just bring him into the world and just not be a father.
Well, it works both ways that way.
Okay.
It works both ways that way. They bring him into the world.
Okay.
They must understand, because I have a brother who was raised by the same woman that I was raised by, who also has the same dad. Mm-hmm. Now, he has some kids, and he's a great father to his kids.
Okay.
But one of the things that I would tell, as you raising these kids, you have to make sure you be honest with them kids. Okay. When the kids ask you something, because like right now, I'm raising grandkids.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't make promises that you can't keep.
That's true.
When you sit up there and say, Dad, can I have this? Or Granddad, can I have this? Well, I don't know. Can you have it or not? Let's do this. But if you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it.
Exactly.
Because if you can't do it, you got to explain to why you can't do it. Because life does get in the way.
Do you think young children remember that? Like when you say, hey, because I have 2 young sons, and I try not to make so many promises. If they say, Dad, we're going somewhere, I say, yeah, I hope we can go there. But do you think that affects them? Because I can't. When I was thinking like promises with my dad, I don't think my dad made a lot of promises. He said we're gonna do it, or we're gonna work, or we're gonna do that. But does that really have an effect on children when a man tells a young child, boy or girl, that I'm gonna do something and not be there?
It hurts. It hurts. But I do believe that as you go older, you will get over it. Yeah, you will get over it. But it hurts. But you gotta, I think it's fuel. It's fuel that you can use to where I'm not going to be doing the same thing that my dad did. Yeah. And and that's one of the things that I also would like to tell you too. Okay. One of the things that we always have said, I'm not going to raise my kids the way my parents raised me. I tell you something, if you look and see why my mother did the best she could do. Yeah. And I tell you something right now, she done a good job of raising me and my 2 brothers. She provided, we had more stuff than a lot of other kids who had working moms and dad. I don't know if that was her way of saying, because she sacrificed. I didn't realize it at that time, but she sacrificed a lot so me and my brothers could have what we had. But I just tell people right today, obey your parents. Obey, if you only got one mom, one dad there, just do what you got to do to make sure, make their life a lot. Because I made my mother, I made my mother life rough. Because by the time, before I even got out of high school, I was locked up in juvenile. I ended up going, like I said, I went down a bad road. By the time I was 14, 15, I had a little 25 automatic.
Let me ask you this: as we wrap this podcast up, and we got to do a part 2. We have to do a part 2. Is what's going on in today's society? Young boys not growing up with their fathers. What can we do as a society today to try to curb the kids not growing up with fathers? What can we do? What can I do as a man? Well, I want to mentor. I want to try to show you a better life. What can we do? Because we can have these dialogues and talk and spread, bring more awareness of fatherhood. But what can we do more, especially as men? What can we do to help save our kids?
Well, for one thing, we got to start at home.
Okay.
When I say home, it's not just your immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
You know your nephew and your cousin is out there stealing. You know they doing something. You know, why don't you go pick up that nephew that, you know, you got so many family members who are turning their backs on their own family members.
You going deep now. Yeah.
How many chances? It's like, is it a black thing? Is it a white culture thing? But how many times Jesus gonna forgive us?
Yeah.
I mean, how many times you gonna forgive? They steal one person. Don't bring that thief over my house.
Yeah.
I hear he on that crack. Don't bring him over my house. I hear he ain't done nothing to you, but you don't want him around your kids. You don't want him around. You just want to shun him away. We can't turn our back on our families. And then you out there doing everything else. You going to church every day. You doing, all the time. But then all of a sudden when it comes down to your family members, you don't want to help them.
Wow.
And I think that's what we got to do. We got to start first with our families.
Mm-hmm.
And once we do that right there, then we can go out and help our neighborhood. Then when we help our neighborhood, we can help our community, then the city, and then the state. We can just go bigger and bigger. But we first got to start by doing it at home, because you cannot sit up there and watch your sister struggling or your cousin struggle with that kid, and you're just going to sit back up there and just turn a blind eye to it.
Especially if you got the tools to help them.
If you got the tools to help them.
Help them.
Help them. You can't, don't be used, because, don't be used, but just, you got ways to help them.
Yeah, and that's what I want this podcast to shed more light. Also with mentoring, when I'm out here mentoring, when I grab a kid, I just want to show them a different light. Like I tell them, I can't replace your dad, but I want to be close enough that you feel like I'm a father figure in your life, where I can help you, guide you, and put you in front of people that you can be more successful. So that's one thing I want to do as a mentor, and that's what I want to do with this organization. So my last question to you is that what encouragement can you give a father and a single mom, especially with those who fighting over custody? I hear about that a lot. I'm fighting for custody of my child, and sometimes the mom doesn't bring the child around to make the dad mad. What is your advice to those kind of people to help them fight for their children and protect the child? What is that advice as we wrap this up?
Well, one thing about it is, if the child is being abused by one of the parents,
okay,
the parent that's doing the abuse need counseling.
Okay.
If that parent does not want to get counseling, it could be safer to keep that child away from that abusive parent. But if there's no abuse toward the child, and that child is being shown love by both parents, and if the two parents can't get along, you need to get a third party involved to where that kid can still enjoy his mom and his dad.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, y'all need to get together. And then I'm glad you brought up single moms. Single moms, this is one thing I would like to say about the women. I've heard so many women say this in the past. I don't need no man taking care of me and my baby.
You started another conversation. Yeah.
But no,
I've heard that a lot.
I've heard that a lot, but quit saying that. Make that man own up to his responsibility. Because if you let him get away scot-free, he's going to go do it to somebody else. And then somebody else. And then about a couple of years later, because this is what done happened. A couple of years later, you liable to see this guy and his new family to where he don't decided that he going to calm down. He want to get his life back together. So he don't met a woman. He's got his family, but he still got a kid out there that you said you don't need no man and nobody to help you take care of. Now all of a sudden you see him with his new family. Now you want to get mad and angry.
Yeah, I see it. I see it a lot.
Now you want to get mad and angry. But then all of a sudden now you want to take him down to child support and take him down there and get money from him. Now he's got to deal with his new wife and all of this right here. And he's been, why ain't you brought this up about this right here?
I have a guy right now that want to do a podcast about that.
And so, but I think we need to get more fathers involved.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think I talked to you about, they need more programs out to help in the juvenile facility. Yeah. To help these fathers who call themselves, and I was running away from their child support. Yeah. It ain't going nowhere. No. Your kid can be grown and they still could come after you. I didn't know that. I mean, you can be grown You can have a grown kid, and if they got any type of state assistance or any type, they still would come, because first of all, you're not going to be able to continue to keep getting income income in. They're gonna take all that. They're gonna garnish that check. They're gonna take all that stuff. So the best thing for you to do is stuff. Because I remember being in Ohio, I sat back and told I said, look here, I got kids in Tennessee. I need this money to come out my check.
Well, one thing I'm proud of you. Ever since I've seen you take care of your grandkids, it meant a lot to me for you to take them in, to try to show them a better life, and I'm great to consider you a friend. We talk all the time about fatherhood. You have an amazing story. We got to do a part 2.
Okay.
Can you come back and give me a part 2?
I can come back and give you a part 2.
Because you got some deep knowledge. So I just want to tell my guests, thank you so much for listening for another episode of Strong in My Father podcast. This show is powered by your donations, your subscription, and if you like what you hear, give me a 5-star rating. For more information and other episodes you want to see on Strong in My Father podcast, just visit our website at strongerthanmyfather.org to see more podcasts and help us find a way to bring more awareness to fatherhood. I am your host, Marcus Manice. God bless you. See you next time.